Those slow government workers you hate, the ones who take forever with your paperwork, they might actually be saving your life. Here's why the most annoying part of bureaucracy is actually protecting you from something terrifying most people never see coming. And once you understand what they're really doing, you'll never look at government delays the same way again. And you might just find yourself grateful for their indifference. Today, we're going to take a journey through 3 radically different models of governance using the world of One Piece as our laboratory. We'll meet Admiral Kizaru, the embodiment of bureaucratic laziness, Admiral Sakazuki, the terrifying face of absolute efficiency, and Admiral Fujitora, the idealist who thinks justice can actually be just. By the end of this analysis, I guarantee you'll never look at that slow-moving government employee the same way again, and you might just find yourself grateful for their indifference. Let's start with what everyone thinks they want: efficiency. Meet Admiral Sakazuki, better known as Akainu. This man represents what we might call absolute justice, and he is terrifyingly good at his job. When Sakazuki believes something needs to be done, it gets done, period. No committees, no lengthy debates, no bureaucratic delays. When he decided that deserting soldiers were a threat to military discipline, he didn't form a review board, he eliminated them instantly. When he concluded that civilian casualties were acceptable collateral damage in pursuing pirates, those civilians, well, they became collateral damage. This is efficiency in its purest form, and it's absolutely horrifying. But here's what makes this relevant to our world. Sakazuki isn't evil because he's corrupt or selfish. He's terrifying because he genuinely believes in his mission. He's the ultimate dedicated public servant, someone who has completely subordinated his personal desires to what he sees as the greater good of the organization he serves. Crack. That's the sound of your comfortable assumptions breaking.
Because when we complain about government inefficiency, when we demand that our officials just get things done, when we fantasize about cutting through red tape and bureaucratic delays, this is what maximum efficiency actually looks like. No hesitation, no second guessing, no mercy for those who get in the way. Now, let's meet his opposite. Have you ever wondered why some of the most dangerous regimes in history were run by people who genuinely thought they were doing good? Admiral Kizaru represents what we might sarcastically call lazy justice. This man is the embodiment of every frustrating government interaction you've ever had. He moves slowly, he speaks in a drawl that makes you want to scream. He seems perpetually uninterested in actually doing anything. When pirates are escaping, Kizaru might show up. Eventually, he'll engage them. Sort of. He'll complete his mission, technically, but with such obvious reluctance and minimal effort that you wonder if he even cares about justice at all. And here's the uncomfortable truth. This might be exactly what we need. You see, Kizaru's laziness isn't just personal indifference, it's structural protection. His reluctance to act with full force, his tendency to do the bare minimum required, his obvious lack of passionate commitment to the cause, these aren't bugs in the system, they're features. Every time Kizaru hesitates, every time he holds back, every time he seems more interested in getting home on time than pursuing absolute justice, he's creating space for human error, for mercy, for the possibility that maybe, just maybe,
the system's definition of justice isn't perfect. Think about it. When was the last time a lazy bureaucrat committed a genocide? When was the last time someone who couldn't be bothered to fill out paperwork properly started a war? The most horrific government actions in history weren't committed by people who didn't care. They were committed by people who cared too much. But wait, there's a third option. What if we could have our cake and eat it too? What if we could create a system that's both efficient and just? Enter Admiral Fujitora, the blind swordsman who represents what we might call moral justice. Unlike Sakazuki's ruthless efficiency or Kizaru's protective laziness, Fujitora actually tries to do the right thing. He questions orders. He considers the impact of his actions on innocent people. He attempts to reform the system from within. He's everything we say we want in a government official. Principled, thoughtful, genuinely committed to justice rather than just following orders. And he's completely ineffective. Fujitora's moral stance puts him in constant conflict with the very system he's trying to serve. His attempts at reform are blocked by bureaucracy. His principled stands make him enemies within his own organization. His genuine care for justice makes him unreliable from the system's perspective. This is the cruel paradox of governance. The most moral people are often the least effective within immoral systems, while the most effective people within those systems are often, well, let's just say they're not the ones you'd invite to your family barbecue. So where does this leave us? We have three models: the passionate enforcer, terrifyingly efficient but morally devastating; the lazy bureaucrat, frustratingly slow but accidentally protective; the moral reformer, admirably principled but practically impotent. Here's the plot twist that might make you squirm. In a fundamentally flawed system, the lazy bureaucrat might actually be your best friend. Think about every frustrating interaction you've had with government offices. That DMV employee who seems to care more about their lunch break than processing your license renewal. That permit officer who takes 6 months to approve what should be a simple request. That tax auditor who gets distracted halfway through examining your return. Annoying? Absolutely. But also protective. Because when government officials are lazy, when they're indifferent, when they're more interested in going home than zealously pursuing their mandate, they're accidentally creating what philosophers call bureaucratic friction, the inefficiency that prevents rapid, sweeping action. It's the difference between a government that takes months to implement bad policy and one that can destroy lives with the stroke of a pen. It's the difference between a system that moves slowly enough for public opposition to organize and one that acts with such swift efficiency that resistance becomes impossible. Now, I'm not saying we should celebrate incompetence. I'm not arguing that we should accept corruption or deliberate neglect, but I am suggesting that there might be wisdom in bureaucratic friction, that there might be protection in institutional laziness, that there might be safety in the very inefficiency we spend so much time complaining about. The most chilling phrase in any language might be, "I'm from the government and I'm here to help efficiently." But here's the counter-argument that we need to wrestle with. What about the real harm that government inefficiency causes? What about the veteran who dies waiting for medical care because of bureaucratic delays?
What about the disaster victim who suffers because relief efforts are mired in red tape? What about the entrepreneur whose business fails because permit approvals take too long? This is where our comfortable theory meets uncomfortable reality. Because while bureaucratic friction might protect us from tyranny, it also prevents beneficial action. While lazy officials might be less dangerous than passionate ones, they're also less helpful when help is desperately needed. The veteran waiting for care doesn't find comfort in knowing that bureaucratic delays also prevent rapid militarization of society. The flood victim doesn't appreciate that the same red tape slowing their relief also slows potential government overreach.
This is the genuine tragedy of governance. Every protection against abuse is also a barrier to assistance. Every safeguard against tyranny is also an obstacle to effective action. Every constitutional check on power is also a constraint on the government's ability to solve problems. So maybe the real question isn't which type of justice is best, but whether we can design systems that maintain protective inefficiency while still enabling beneficial action when it's truly needed. What if the answer isn't choosing between efficiency and protection, but creating intelligent inefficiency? Systems that are deliberately slow for routine actions, but capable of rapid response in genuine emergencies. What if we need bureaucratic friction as the default, with carefully designed escape valves for when speed really matters? Consider this. Every democracy that has survived long-term has had to solve this exact puzzle. They've had to create governments strong enough to function, but constrained enough to remain free. They've had to balance the need for effective action with the need for protective delay. And maybe, just maybe, those frustrating government employees who seem to care more about their coffee breaks than your urgent request are actually part of that delicate balance. Maybe their indifference is accidentally protecting freedoms that more passionate officials might enthusiastically erode. So, what does this all mean for you, sitting there, probably wondering whether you should be grateful for or frustrated by the next slow government interaction you have? Here's the so what that changes everything. Understanding this paradox makes you a more sophisticated citizen. Instead of just demanding efficiency, you can start asking, efficient at what, and at what cost? Instead of just complaining about lazy bureaucrats, you can start recognizing when their laziness might be serving a protective function you didn't even know you needed. This doesn't mean accepting corruption or deliberate harm. It doesn't mean we should stop pushing for responsive government or holding officials accountable. But it does mean recognizing that the solution to government problems isn't always move faster and care more. Sometimes it's move thoughtfully and maintain healthy skepticism about your own power.
The next time you're standing in line at a government office, watching an employee who seems more interested in their personal phone call than helping you, try this thought experiment. Would you rather deal with someone who doesn't care enough, or someone who cares so much about their interpretation of the rules that they'd sacrifice your rights to enforce them perfectly? Your answer to that question might determine what kind of society you're actually advocating for. In the end, maybe the most important question isn't how do we make government more efficient, but how do we make government more human? Because human beings are naturally lazy, inconsistent, and imperfect. And in a world where perfect efficiency in service of any ideology, even a good one, can become indistinguishable from tyranny, maybe our salvation lies not in transcending human nature, but in embracing the protective power of our own beautiful, frustrating, accidentally wise imperfection.